Can you briefly explain CTIS?
CTIS is a new IT system that serves as a single entry point for the submission, assessment, and supervision of clinical trials data for clinical trials that are conducted in the European Union and the European Economic Area. It includes two secure domains, one for sponsor users and another secure domain that is accessible to members of the national competent authorities and the ethics committee. There is also a public website, a public domain, which is freely accessible to members of the public, and this includes healthcare professionals as well as potential clinical trial participants like patients or healthy volunteers. The launch of CTIS and the application of the clinical trials regulation, which occurred in January of this year, of 2022, represents really a major change in the clinical trial landscape in the European Union. We have to think that before the application of the regulation, sponsors had to submit individual clinical trial applications to each and every member state concerned where they intended to conduct the clinical trial. Also, the submission and the posting of the summary of results was a separate process. Now, with this new IT platform, all the collection of clinical trial data occurs in one place. The whole life cycle, the information occurring during the life cycle is submitted in CTIS, and also the posting of the summary of results, including in lay terms, which will be made available to the general public.
How did you take into consideration the academic clinical trials in the development of CTIS?
So the need of academic sponsors was really a key concern for us when designing the system functionalities, because if we look at the recent clinical trial statistics, we can see that academia has played really a key role in clinical research and clinical development in the last few years. So EMA is really committed to engage with academic sponsors to work together for one of the main objectives of the clinical trials regulation, that is to make the European Union an attractive place for clinical research once again. So as part of the development of the system functionalities, we have appointed product owners from academic sponsors, and the role of product owner is really important because the product owners are involved in all the design steps and also validation and testing of the system functionalities. So to have academic sponsors on board as part of this process was key, also to understand their needs and some areas on functionalities of the system which could have been complex to use, and we understood the importance of clarifying these functionalities, for example, in training material. We also had academic sponsors represented in the CTIS stakeholder group. This is a group that is meeting 4 times per year and provides input on the CTIS project more in general.
A joint training session was developed with ECRIN in December for its CTU community. What was the approach taken for this training?
One of the main factors was the close collaboration with ECRIN in preparation to this event, and the close collaboration that we had. So we worked together in defining the agenda and the topics to be covered during the event, as well as the format. And it was important to learn and to know that the preference from the audience was to have like a real hands-on experience, and rather than having, for example, long, detailed presentation the system functionalities. So we propose a format including a short introductory presentation for each system functionality presented, and then allow sufficient time to dive into the system functionalities and navigate across the sections so that the user could see how the system looked in practice. We also made sure that we had sufficient time for a Q&A session, for question and answer, in order to make the event more interactive, and we also produced a dedicated training material, a training module for SME and academia on CTIS system functionalities.
How did it differ from others to date?
The difference, I would say, was really on the fact that having this close collaboration with ECRIN in advance to the event helped us to tailor better the content of the presentations and what we were going to demonstrate. For example, we were informed in advance to the event that most of the organization would have preferred an organization-centric approach. That is one of the two approaches which can be used for user management purposes when using CTIS. So knowing this in advance, it really helped us to tailor the scope of the presentations to make sure that the points were covered and clearly explained. So what was really beneficial, I think, for the organization of this event was the close collaboration before and having input and expectation from the users community.
What were the benefits of running such a training session?
The benefits of running this training session was the modality and the fact that we had a live demo, which allowed the users even to raise questions during the event and then addressing the speakers or asking the speakers to have a better look, another look at some of the system functionalities that were presented. This was, of course, a complementary tool, a complementary event in addition to the existing training material, to the catalog that we have published on the EMA corporate website on system functionalities.
Are there any important messages to share on the rollout of CTIS?
On the important messages after the rollout, we now have a system that has been launched 2 months ago that is being used by different sponsors when preparing and submitting their clinical trial application. However, maybe it's good to remind that there is this 3 years transition period and sponsors can choose whether they want to submit during this first year of transition new clinical trials application using CTIS, or they can still refer to the previously used database, EUDRA-CT. For starting from the 31st of January 2023, all new clinical trials application will have to be submitted in CTIS, and clinical trials that are ongoing under the regime of the directive can continue to be ongoing up to the 31st of January 2025. So this date really marks the end of the 3 years transition period, and by then all the clinical trials application will have to be migrated to CTIS. Another important point to mention is that the very first clinical trial application that we have received in CTIS was submitted by an academic sponsors, and of course this is quite encouraging, and we can see the high level of engagement in applications that are currently being prepared. So it's good to see the use that is made of CTIS, and maybe I can also refer, just to refresh our memories, to the existing training materials and the CTIS sponsor handbook that provides a compilation of links and useful information that sponsor can consult in relation to CTIS functionalities. Maybe I would like to add and conclude on the CTU initiative that has just been launched in January of this year. This is about accelerating clinical trials in the EU, and is a new initiative that really builds on the momentum of the launch of CTIS and the applicability of the clinical trials regulation, and aims at bringing together the different actors and partners running clinical trials. And one of the main objectives also of CTU is to strengthen our collaboration with different stakeholders and different partners. Thank you.